I buried my son with my own hands. That's the kind of sentence you never expect to say out loud. The kind of truth that lives only in the quiet spaces between breaths. For 15 years I lived with it. 15 years of flowers, candles, whispers into the cold stone that bore his name. And then one morning I saw him walk past the cemetery gate. It happened the way most impossible things do, quietly. No thunder, no divine light, just a shadow slipping across the path, a familiar rhythm of steps that my heart recognized before my mind could. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. He was taller now, older, but he was him. The same way he used to tuck his hands into his jacket pockets, the same slight limp from the bike accident when he was 12. My son! I whispered his name, once, then again, but he didn't turn. He just walked, head down, as if the world around him didn't exist. And in that moment, something inside me shattered, not from pain, but from something far more dangerous. Hope. Because you can grieve a loss, but how do you grieve a miracle? That night, I didn't sleep. The image replayed endlessly. His coat, his hair, the way his shoulders hunched against the wind. The grave was still there, the same stone, the same date. But my heart no longer believed in what it saw.
Grief is a clock that never stops ticking. It doesn't care about calendars or seasons. It just loops again and again until you forget what silence used to sound like before loss moved in. For 15 years, my life revolved around that grave. Every Sunday, no matter the weather, I walked the same road, past the bakery with its warm smell of bread I never bought, past the church whose bells I stopped listening to, past the crooked iron gate that led into the cemetery. His name was carved into the third stone from the maple tree, Elias Carter, born March 14th, died May 3rd, 15 years old. I used to trace those letters with my thumb, as if the grooves could somehow speak back. I'd wipe the leaves from the marble, polish the edges, light a single candle, always the same kind, white, unscented. I couldn't stand the smell of flowers anymore. They reminded me of decay, disguised as beauty. Sometimes I'd talk to him, not in words people could overhear, just whispers, barely breaths. I kept your room the same, I'd say. Your bike's still in the shed. Your mother still can't say your name without crying. But over time, even those words began to fade. Grief doesn't stay sharp. It dulls, but it never disappears. It becomes a weight you get used to carrying. Neighbors stopped asking how I was. Friends stopped visiting. My wife, Emily, eventually stopped coming to the grave altogether. she said. You need to let go. Her voice trembling between anger and exhaustion. You're keeping him here. Maybe she was right, but letting go felt like betrayal. So I kept going, every Sunday, every week, for 15 years. And then, on a gray February morning, everything changed. I was kneeling by the headstone, brushing away frost, when I heard footsteps on the gravel path behind me. Heavy, uneven. I turned, expecting the groundskeeper, or maybe another mourner. But what I saw made the air vanish from my lungs.
A boy, or a man maybe, tall, lean, wrapped in an old coat, his hair dark and unkempt, his face half hidden beneath the brim of a cap. He didn't look at me, just walked slowly along the path toward the gate. It wasn't until he passed under the arch that I saw the limp. That same faint, familiar limp. My fingers went cold against the stone. My voice cracked as I whispered his name. Elias? But he didn't turn, didn't even pause. I ran after him, boots slipping on the wet ground, but by the time I reached the gate, the road was empty. Only tire tracks, vanishing into mist. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't light the candle. I just stood there, heart pounding, staring into nothing, because nothing made sense anymore. For days after that morning, I lived between two worlds, the one I could see and the one I remembered. I told myself I was mistaken, that grief had finally cracked something inside me. After all, how could a man see his dead son walking? But lies told to yourself never last long. Everywhere I went, I saw him. In reflections, in crowds, in the corner of my vision, a figure just out of reach. Sometimes it was the sound of shoes scuffing pavement behind me. Sometimes a shadow passing beneath a streetlight. Every time I turned, nothing. Sleep became a stranger. At night I'd dream of the funeral, the rain, the dirt, the sound of the coffin hitting the earth. But now, when I opened the casket in those dreams, it was empty. I began digging through the past, literally and figuratively. Old photographs, hospital records, the coroner's report. That report, I'd never really read it before, just signed where I was told. My eyes caught on a single line. Identification based on personal effects recovered at scene. Personal effects, not dental records, not DNA, just what he was wearing. A watch, a bracelet, his school ring. I remembered those things vividly because I was the one who gave them to him. But what if? What if someone else had them? I told myself not
to go further. But grief doesn't listen to logic. It feeds on questions that have no answers. I drove back to the cemetery 2 nights later. The gates were locked, but I climbed over. My flashlight beam cut through fog like a knife. I went straight to the grave. The candle I'd left days ago had burned down to nothing. I stood there, trembling. "I saw you," I whispered into the cold. "If you're out there, please just let me know." The wind picked up, carrying with it the faintest sound, something that could have been a whisper, or maybe my name. I froze, turned slowly toward the sound. Between 2 trees, at the edge of the fog, a figure stood, still, watching. My voice cracked. "Elias?" He didn't move, didn't run, just stood there. And then, like smoke, he was gone. I stumbled home that night, half mad, half awake. I didn't tell Emily. She wouldn't have believed me. Instead, I sat in his old room, untouched since the day we buried him. The posters were faded, the bed neatly made. His shoes still sat by the door. I stared at the shoes for a long time, and then I noticed something that froze me to my core. They weren't covered in dust. Someone had worn them recently. I didn't leave the house for 3 days after that. Not out of fear, at least not the kind you can name. It was something heavier, quieter, like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. I sat in his room, watching the light change through the curtains, morning to afternoon, afternoon to night. The smell of dust and old wood filled my lungs. Every sound in the house seemed louder. The hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, the whisper of my own heartbeat. By the 4th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the police. They looked at me the way people do when they're trying not to show pity. "Mr. Carter," the officer said softly, "your son's case was closed 15 years ago. There's no evidence he survived that accident." "Evidence?" I laughed, but it came out cracked. "You buried a body you never identified. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" He sighed, scribbling something in his notebook. "Sometimes grief makes people see things. I've seen it before." Grief. That word again, as if grief were a hallucination, a storm you could diagnose. I walked out before he finished his sentence. That night, I found myself driving without knowing where I was going. The rain came hard, hammering the windshield. The wipers groaned back and forth, matching the rhythm of my pulse. Then, as I passed the old gas station on Route 9, I saw him again, standing under the flickering light. Same jacket, same limp, a ghost in the rain. I pulled over so fast the tires screamed. By the time I stepped out, he was gone again, vanished behind the row of trees. But he dropped something, a matchbook. I picked it up. The logo was faded, but I could still make out the name, the Hollow Bar. It was a place on the edge of town, the kind of bar that only opened when the sun went down and people wanted to forget themselves. I went there the next night. The floor was sticky, the lights dim, the smell of smoke clinging to everything. The bartender looked up when I came in, a man in his 60s with gray stubble and eyes that had seen too much. "What'll it be?" I slid the matchbook across the counter. "You've seen him, haven't you?" He frowned. "Who?" "My son, Elias Carter." He didn't answer first. Then, slowly, he said, "Yeah, comes in every few weeks, keeps to himself, drinks ginger ale, has that limp too." My throat closed. "When was the last time?" "3 nights ago?" The room tilted. I gripped the counter. "Did he say anything?" "Not much. Just that he doesn't go by that name anymore." "What name, then?" The man hesitated. "Said he's Daniel now. Daniel Gray." I drove home with shaking hands. My mind kept repeating that name, Daniel Gray. Was he hiding? From what? From me? When I walked into the house, Emily was waiting in the hallway. Her eyes were red, her voice low. "Where have you been?" I didn't answer. She took one look at my face and stepped back. "You saw something, didn't you?" I nodded. Her lips trembled. "Don't say it." "I have to." "No," she said sharply, her hands trembling. "Don't you dare say his name." Something broke in her voice that scared me. And in that silence, I realized something else. She wasn't shocked. She was terrified. Later that night, while she slept, I found the box she kept under our bed. Inside were newspaper clippings, envelopes, and a small stack of letters, all addressed to Daniel Gray, postmarked over the last 10 years. Every single one of them had been opened. The next morning, the world looked the same, but nothing in it felt real. The air felt heavier, the walls too close. I sat at the kitchen table, the box of letters open in front of me. My hands shook as I pulled one out and began to read. "Dad still visits the grave every week. You shouldn't have done it like this. I don't know how much longer I can keep lying." It was in Emily's handwriting. The date? 8 years ago. I read another. "He's asking questions again. You can't come back here. Not now. They'd put you away for good." And another. "Please stop sending photos. You're not helping either of us." Photos. My stomach twisted. I dug deeper, and there they were, small prints, curled at the edges. My son, older, alive, looking straight into the camera. A different name on the back of each one. Daniel Gray, Evan Marks, Matthew Lee. All the same eyes, all the same limp. I sat there for what felt like hours, my mind unraveling thread by thread. When Emily came down the stairs, I didn't speak. I just held up the letters. Her face drained of color. "You knew," I said quietly. She closed her eyes. "Please don't make me do this." 15 years, Emily. 15 years of graves and candles and ghosts, and you knew. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "It wasn't my choice." "Then whose was it?" She sank into the chair across from me. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "There was an accident, yes, but not the one they told you about. Elias wasn't supposed to die that night." "What do you mean, wasn't supposed to?" "He saw something that could have destroyed people, dangerous people. The police, the company your brother worked for, they wanted it buried. They told us it would be safer if he disappeared." I stared at her, unable to process the words. "You're telling me our son is alive because of them? Because of what he saw?" I stood, pacing, my pulse hammering. "And you just, what, let me believe he was dead?" "I didn't have a choice," she cried. "They threatened us. They said if you knew, they'd come for him, for you." I laughed, but it wasn't laughter. It was disbelief clawing its way out. "You could have trusted me." Her voice broke. "I did. But you were falling apart. You stopped sleeping. You stopped living. How could I tell you that our son was out there, hiding under another name?" I looked at her, this woman I had shared a life with, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. The woman who sat across from me wasn't my wife. She was the keeper of my nightmare. That night, I drove again to the Hollow Bar. The bartender saw me and didn't speak. He just nodded toward the back. "He was here," he murmured. "Left a note for you." A folded napkin. 4 words written in familiar handwriting. "Meet me where it began. The bridge." I drove through the fog, my heart a drumbeat of fear and hope. When I reached the bridge, I saw him, leaning against the railing, head bowed, rain soaking through his jacket. "Elias," I whispered. He turned, slowly, and for the first time in 15 years, I saw his face clearly. Older, harder, but still my son. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, softly, "You shouldn't have come." The sound of rain on the bridge drowned out everything else. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The world felt suspended, a single breath held between life and death. He looked older, yes, but not broken. There was strength in the way he stood, a quiet resolve in his eyes. He had his mother's eyes, that soft, steady gaze that used to calm me after long days. I wanted to reach out, to touch his shoulder, to prove he was real. But I didn't move. I was afraid that if I did, he'd vanish again. "Elias," I said at last, my voice barely a whisper. "Why?" He didn't look at me. He stared at the water below, his breath forming ghosts in the cold air. I didn't mean for you to find out. Not like this. Then tell me, I said. Tell me what they did, what you did. His jaw tightened. I saw something, Dad. Something I shouldn't have. I thought I could fix it, but people died because of me. They said it was better if I disappeared. He turned to me then, and for a split second I saw the boy he used to be, the one who built model planes in the kitchen, who laughed too loud, who hugged me with both arms. You were never supposed to see me again, he said softly. I stepped closer. And Mom? She knew? She let me think you were gone? He nodded, pain flickering in his eyes. She was trying to protect you. If you'd known, they would have come for you too. I shook my head. Protect me? You buried me alive. Every single day since that funeral, I've been digging myself out. He winced, not from anger, but guilt. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air, small and useless. What do I do now? I asked. Pretend I didn't see you? Keep talking to a gravestone while you hide in the shadows? He hesitated. If you love me, yes.
The bridge groaned under the wind. Water roared beneath us. I felt the world spinning, the weight of 15 years pressing down on my chest. He reached into his pocket and handed me something. A photograph. Me, Emily, and him. Taken weeks before the accident. On the back, in his handwriting, "Let this be enough." I wanted to scream, to tell him that nothing would ever be enough, but instead I just looked at him, my son, my ghost, and whispered, "I don't know how to let go." He smiled sadly. "You already did, the day you saw me." Then he turned and walked away, his figure fading into the fog, until all that remained was the sound of footsteps and the rain swallowing his shadow. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember sleeping. But the next morning, when I woke, Emily was sitting by the window, holding a cup of tea. Her eyes were swollen, but her voice was calm. "Did you see him?" I nodded. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. We sat there in silence, two parents mourning the same son, one lost to death, the other to the living. After a while I said, "What now?" She looked at me and whispered, "We go on." A week later I went back to the cemetery. The ground was soft from the rain, the air thick with the smell of earth. I brought new flowers, cleaned the stone, and placed the photograph beneath the candle. As I turned to leave, I thought I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate, familiar. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. Some ghosts don't haunt you. They watch over you, quietly, patiently, until you learn to stop searching for them in the dark. It's been a year now. Sometimes when the fog rolls across the lake, I swear I see him, standing at the edge of the water, hands in his pockets, looking up at the sky. I don't chase him anymore. I just watch. Because maybe in some twisted way, this is what peace looks like, knowing the truth, but choosing not to destroy it. I still visit his grave every Sunday. I still light the candle. But now when I whisper, it isn't a prayer for the dead. It's a promise to the living.
You don't have to come home, son. Just stay safe. I buried my son once. I won't bury him again. Some truths are better left to the wind and the silence that follows. If this story spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters.